people they dislike have force used against them.
Probably. Hold up, guys. I'm getting ready to go live, so take it easy.
Sorry. Well, I'll drop that subject. Sorry, but
No problem.
I'll have to watch that video later. It looks hilarious.
All right. Whenever OBS and YouTube and every other goofy technological turd that decides to quit being fucking slow.
People they dislike have force. Bill Gates will save us all. I'm joking.
Yeah, he'll save us all for the Googleoids.
Oh, God.
Alright, let me send this link around.
Yeah, I'll show this wine far.
Just let me know when we're alive. So
we are technically live now, but
I won't make any uncouth jokes.
I'm passing around the link.
We just gotta pass ourselves around a little bit, and bam!
That is horrible, by the way.
It's a joke. I'm sorry. I grew up around the motor pool and soldiers, so basically my sense of humor is bad.
Oh, I know. I did it too.
And it did mostly menial labor since then.
Yeah.
No, you know what? I don't mind doing the dirty job.
Rita, what did I tell you?
Build character.
Get out.
Problem is my stomach got in the way.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I just wish I could figure out what it was.
You and me both, dude. Because I got similar problems. They're just not as bad as some of yours.
But that's a story for another time, children. Let's talk about the zombie apocalypse.
That's not why we're here. What's wrong with you?
It's a joke. I'm sorry. I'm trying to fill dead air.
I'm not yelling at you. I'm just giving you shit.
Way back yonder, before you were born and the grass got too tall, and we just gave up on mowing it. And I guess that's when we lost the Cadillac. But more importantly, way back yonder.
Okay, AW, I'm gonna let you lead this off when you're done. So we're kind of just here.
All right, are we live right now?
We are live.
All right, awesome. Well, hello everyone. This is our second veteran stream I've been doing with Favre.
And just technically our third.
Sorry. Oh yeah. Well, we did.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, the last one was kind of a whatever. I mean, the last one I didn't think that was like a veteran stream. That was kind of a general hangout.
It wasn't, and I'm an idiot. I forgot to turn my controller remapping off before I started the game.
You were trying to play Guild Wars?
Yes, I was trying to use my fucking Guild Wars controls on Dusk. That was fucking brilliant. Holy shit. I was wondering why the cursor was fucking around so much.
Oh crap, let me bring up the channel real quick.
Yeah, you should probably do that.
That way I can do an audio check.
Just turn the sound down a little bit.
I need to get a...
Whoa, not that much, damn.
Yeah. Actually, Josh, if you can take a look at our audio levels and just make sure we're all at the right volume.
Yeah. Ooh.
What happened?
Anyway, sorry?
No, I was talking to Josh. I heard a noise.
No, it was the vehicle in the background.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm gonna jump out of chat or the voice thing just for a second so I can do an audio check. I'll be right back.
Okay.
All right, man.
Anyway, so yeah, this is the second and a half veteran stream I've done with Favre, and we're just we're here because today is 9/11.
Yes,
and it's not just any anniversary of 9/11. It's the 20th anniversary of 9/11, which it's actually really just remarkable. It's been that long. It's been more than half a lifetime for me. God,
All right, I return.
What's
Everyone's
up, man?
by the way.
All right, good.
Ooh. All right, I'm ready to rock and roll it.
there we go.
We are
Sorry, I had a
technically
little
getting
bit of
started now. Yeah, he was getting his shit together.
Yeah, sorry, I was actually having a little bit of an audio issue on my end, which is I'll explain later.
That's fine.
But so yeah, it's the 20th anniversary of 9/11.
Ooh.
And it's about 20 years plus about 6 hours. I think everybody in our generation, I mean, the The remarkable thing about 9/11 is it ended a generation. The usual demarcation line I've seen for the millennial generation is if you were old enough to remember 9/11. If you were too young, then you're a zoomer. And everyone in America who's old enough knows exactly where they were and what they were doing on 9/11, and how they found out. It was really,
or at least has some semblance of knowing, even if they don't remember exactly.
Unless you were, I don't know what. Yeah, it's a.
Don't overthink it. It's fine.
I mean, it's almost like our generation's Kennedy assassination is a.
Or Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, like my parents know what they were doing when they heard that Kennedy was assassinated. They were little kids at the time, and I'm in the same boat with 9/11. That was my second day in high school. The weird thing about it was like, so I was going to high school, and like people started telling me in the morning that there had been some kind of a terror attack, like a really big terror attack. They started saying they hit the World Trade Center, they hit the Pentagon.
Yeah. And
I didn't believe them. Like I thought people were messing with me until what the hell was it? I think it was after lunch actually. Like the towers had already fallen. It was actually lunch actually when one of the teachers actually pulled the TV into his classroom and we started watching the news coverage. Oh. And yeah, that was a weird day. Then I went home and I watched the news for us today. What I did.
I'm trying to remember the exact because I went through a lot of shit leading up to that point.
Yeah.
Like I'd gone through that. What's that?
Weren't you in the Army at the time?
No, it was before I got back in. I was in between enlistments. I was stuck. I think at the time that happened, I was stuck living back in California with my parents because all that other dumb shit that had happened that we've talked about in private before. So I'd already been homeless and shit by then. I was stuck back in California, which was a place I never wanted to go. Like, I was pretty much feeling like I was at rock bottom already.
Yeah.
And then that shit happened. And, I guess ironically enough, it's kind of what helped me get my shit together, because after that happened, I decided, fuck it, my life was kind of destroyed. I was stuck back in a state I hated.
Yeah.
Fucking smoked out every other weekend because my life was fucking garbage.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, fuck this. Like, I'm gonna get my shit back together. I'm gonna quit doing this, and I'm just gonna go get back in the damn military. Because fuck this shit. Like, how did this fucking even happen? Kind of thing, you know? Like, you see this shit on TV, and it's almost like surreal. It's like, how the fuck did this just happen here?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I was thinking about at the time was like, this is some shit out of a Tom Clancy novel.
Yeah.
That dates both of us because Tom Clancy was really big at the time.
Yeah, that's fucking true, ain't it? Jesus.
Revan says, "Hey lads."
Hey, what's up? But please continue, man. I remember it's like those towers had been there like as long as I had been alive, as long as I was aware of. They'd been there as long as I was alive, and you just suddenly have this weird shit. You get this commercial playing. There's all this. Gab and static and conflicting reports and shit on all the news about what's going on with this fucking plane, and this motherfucker just right into these fucking buildings like it's a fucking action movie or some bullshit.
Yeah, just straight up on TV. And it was especially weird for me actually because I grew up in upstate New York. Now New York is a big state, right? So I grew up a long way from New York City, but my 8th grade class field trip, we went down to New York City.
Oh, damn.
And beyond this was, peak pre-9/11 America where we had 8th graders walking around buying fake Rolexes from street vendors and shit.
Giuliani's New York.
Damn right.
Yeah, that was Rudy's fucking New York, yeah.
It was quite the place, but
Well, I'm old enough that I remember the first terror attack on the tower.
Oh yeah, man, yeah.
I was too young for that. I was 6 years old at the time, and I don't think I saw any news coverage about it.
Well, I think that kind of contributed to it because the first attempt on it was kind of both terrifying and amusing in a stupid way because of how dumb it was. So it kind of gave this idea that I hate to put it in this regard that
Put it
a
however
lot
you
of
got it.
Americans have is that up until that point, the idea was it couldn't happen here.
Yeah.
And I had lived in Europe for a long time, so I remember the terrorism that happened around the wall.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah, because it used to be like Europe in the 80s was kind of dangerous.
especially Germany with the wall up still.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare. Like you used to have to take the train and it would cross between the two sides.
Mm-hmm.
So I could still remember the train being stopped and the East German pulling people off and checking their IDs. And then if you messed up.
Revan says your volume's still low, AW.
My volume's still low.
And I've got the game audio down.
Let me see if I can adjust my volume.
No problem. Go ahead and keep talking there, brother, while he's doing that.
Oh, and hey, Smoking Patriot, thanks for showing up. But I remember going through that when I was a kid. I actually lived on the street when they thought World War III was going to kick off, and they had all the tanks lined up on both sides.
Yeah, ooh,
yeah.
My pop was one of the tankers, so I came from a situation with that, and then seeing some of the stuff kicking up. But when 9/11 happened, I had woke up early. I'd had a job interview the night before, and I was sitting there and I'm watching this go on in the news. And I get a call, and it's the guy that interviewed me the night before telling me I gotten the job, and I was like, man, this is a bad omen. And you're watching this occur on the TV, and then they're like, oh yeah, come work for us, and you're like, oh.
Yeah,
but
not the greatest of signs.
It was very surreal.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it opened a lot of people up due to pain, sorrow, grief, and just being scared to a lot of dumb things we had to suffer through in the current year.
Yeah. God, it was.
But that's not
terrible.
politicized it.
No, I understand.
But it was actually very surreal to watch an actual plane slam into these buildings, and then you're seeing all the images of the aftermath and these. Let's not be overly critical, I guess, to a degree, but let's give credit to the men and women that served at that time in New York. Whatever might think of cops.
Emergency
today,
services. Let's just broaden it.
those guys ran into buildings, and a lot of them died, and a lot of them suffered in silence since that.
Yeah, they did, and it ain't fucking right.
A lot of those guys those buildings had asbestos in them. They had all kinds of bad things in them. A lot of the guys who did rescue efforts then, they got sick, real sick.
Yeah. I still remember one of the images of one of the cops. He was doing search and rescue where he was sitting there and he just overcome by everything, and a Doberman's licking his face. And you could just see it, the pain people experienced, and then the suffering after that. And it's just one of those
And it's one of those real bad things. It's like when you're initially dealing with it, you're either pumped up on adrenaline or you're so in disbelief that this could actually happen that initially you're kind of pushing through it, and then it's later when you're done that it really fucking starts to hit you.
Well, it's one of those things. If you've ever been in a situation where your life's at threat, you usually don't have time to
think
feel
about it and feel
or think, and it's all of that hits you like a wall after it.
So everything you've dealt with for the last 7-8 hours to several days, it's like the minute you stop doing, the minute you stop activity, everything just fucking hits you all at once.
Yeah,
it's just like how. Yeah, go ahead.
It's just like you're just looking and you're like, wow, the world's changed right now. Everything everything that sort of the assumptions I built my life on aren't correct. Like I saw that and I knew, and man, I was an awkward kid, right? I was not athletic. I had social problems. Yeah. I saw that and I was like, if I can, I'm getting into the military. Like that set me on my life course.
Well, you did better than I did. Shit, you got in as an officer.
Yeah.
I'd already been in. I think I'd already been in once by then.
To be fair, I think, Mike, I would say that we were somewhat of the disposable people in our generation.
Probably.
Like, a lot of people don't understand the vast differences between America today and then.
Yeah.
But, we didn't have a lot of the same problems we do today, especially when it comes to race and such.
Let's be real, we were working class dudes, and nobody really gave much of a shit, I guess. I don't know how better to put that.
I mean, the whole racial thing we see these days, it's all, honestly, a lot of that's drummed up by, honestly, a lot of people who can't even remember that a lot. Right?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying, is at the time, what he means at the time, we were just more fucking, working class dudes.
Yeah,
we hadn't been to college or none of that shit.
Yeah, and that stuff is so much a product of the university system.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, it's people who have jobs that want to make sure that they have a job later.
Yeah.
In a way.
But unfortunately, that was kind of at one of its heights at the time this happened, so a lot of guys like us, regardless of what we did, we just kind of got looked at sideways. We were deemed as not as good, because we came from poor families and shit like that.
Also got kind of hit by the housing crash.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Bush.
Yeah.
Thanks, freaking Clinton.
Yeah, I was graduating from college when the housing crash hit. And, just reading newspapers in the dining hall, talking about the end of the world.
Jesus.
And at least the financial end of the world. I was like, man, I'm really happy I have this army job lined up right now, because they didn't even have a job for that day, for that year. They barely did.
I'll tell you what, I was fucking, after the whole thing with the military the first time, before September 11 happened, I was homeless during some of that.
Yeah.
That was not some fun shit to deal with. Because
I bet.
if you were a fucking, a former working class white guy, and I'm not trying to make this a race thing, I'm just telling you how it was, you couldn't get shit. You couldn't get welfare. You couldn't get housing assistance. You couldn't get nothing. I was literally on my own, having to be at the whim of whoever I could get that was willing to give me some work or some kind of help. Because the system would not fucking help. So, by the time I ended up going through that other shit, I'd been through a couple of different fucking places where I'd had to live with other people just doing odd jobs and shit like that.
Uh-huh.
And my life was already, at a pretty low point, and then this shit happens, and it was only because my parents and I had reached some semblance of an understanding, because we hadn't spoken for 10, 12 years at that point.
Yeah.
That all that shit happened, I was like, I can't fucking do this no more. I was like, and my dad, he did 2 tours in Nam, and he's like, I don't know if I agree with it. He's like, but I understand. He's like, do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things is, you had 9/11, then you had the housing crisis.
Yeah.
And the banking crisis, and the economy just being in, the shitter.
Yeah, because the housing crisis was going on for a while. It started before September 11th by all technicality.
Yeah, I mean, the housing crisis was... That economic crash went on for years.
Yes, it did.
Yes.
Basically, Obama's whole first term, it was a recession. It was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and he exasperated it.
Yeah, he took a problem that already existed and made it worse. But again, we're not here to talk about politics so much.
Yeah.
But, go ahead.
I mean, God, because I got into the Army on active duty in 2010. I went through the whole officer training process.
Jesus Christ. I'd been out since 2006.
Yeah.
I was out. I was out my second term before you got in on your first.
Yeah, it's nuts, right? I actually technically joined the Army in 2006, because that's when I became a cadet.
Oh yeah, because the training course, OCS, and all this shit.
Yeah, but it took a while.
Yeah.
And man, like the remarkable thing also was just the turnover in the army at the time between the 90s army, the peacetime army, and the wartime army. Like, so many people were getting out.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so many people freaking were getting out, got out. I mean, my one of my first bosses, the old XO of my old infantry unit.
Yeah.
He was a year group 2000 guy. He'd gotten commissioned in 2000, and he made major in 6 years.
Jesus.
Like, that's like, he did like the 3-year lieutenant kick, and then he got, I don't know, double or triple below the zone promoted to major, and I think he got like he might have actually gotten lucky. He got the one time they ever paid an officer retention bonus in the U.S. Army.
Wow.
They did it at one time.
Fucking wow.
They were giving guys like 80 G's to stay in the Army.
Oh, because everything was so fucked up. They weren't prepared for any of this. Nobody was.
Oh, yeah,
and they had started to downsize basically at the point this shit all went down.
Yeah, no, like the military especially, like when 9/11 hit, the military wasn't prepared for any of this. Not
you had the Clinton years of downsizing.
Yeah.
And that was preceded by the years before Reagan, with also Jimmy Carter trying to attack the military.
Yeah.
So you have like two fairly big presidencies in which they just kept trying to go after the military's budget. Like when my pops was in the military, they were still using World War II barracks most widely.
Yeah.
And they had, it's not even to what? 2015 that they've had them all knocked down, I think.
Dude, when I was in 234th Armored, right out of Fort Riley.
Yeah.
When we went to go do a bunch of our training shit over at Knox, they still had like first gen Vietnam barracks there even.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they just tore down the World War II stuff on like North Post Fort Lewis. And when I was in Korea, like the buildings there were all, 60s, 70s vintage stuff. That place had not been modernized for shit.
Nah.
So we've had a couple big presidencies that were just about budget cutting with the military, so they could shove it into other areas.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of the military, speaking of the size of the military,
yeah,
I had so 9/11 happens, and everybody. And by the way, you want to talk about how different America was back then?
No.
9/11 happened, and the entire political spectrum in the United States of America, far left to far right, unified, like as one behind George W. Bush.
Yeah, and it was weird, because there was a time you had shit going down in New York where everybody was just getting together and doing all this crazy shit to help people.
Yeah.
It's like you look at New York now, you can't get a motherfucker to lift a finger to do shit for nobody else in the city.
Yeah, like, something like that happened these days, that the freaking victims would probably get robbed.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're lucky, that's all that happened to them.
Yeah. They'd probably blame it on white supremacy.
Oh God.
Geez. Lord. Like, Smoking Patriot says here, houses that were going for $4K were selling for less than $100K likely 3 or so years after that collapse.
Yeah.
And that's if you're in an area that had a strong economy. Like, if you were in the cities, by and large, you were doing better than a lot of other places in the country. But if you were in the country, like at the time I had relocated to help family, it annihilated the area where my family lived. There was nothing. It was completely gone. It was like the whole town was wiped away.
Ugh.
Yeah, like just to give you an idea of how bad the crash was. So my brother moved to San Francisco in sort of in the immediate sort of in that time period.
Ugh.
It was sort of in the general time when housing prices were depressed. And that was the only time when housing prices in San Francisco were like conceivably affordable for any normal person.
Exactly. Oh, and hey, Eve.
Eve.
Fucking barrel, get out of here.
to go back to what I was getting at. So,
Fuck you,
but
bulldozer.
the entire political spectrum in the country unified behind George W. Bush. For that dude had a 90% approval rating.
Yeah, that was
like,
fucking weird as hell.
The entire United States of America just got the idea, like, this was the new Pearl Harbor, and we're just going to like, unify behind the government like it's World War II. Right?
Yeah,
that was just
it was pretty damn close.
Oh, Revan's saying turn down the game music a little bit. It's taking over the stream.
Game music's not even on anymore, but hold on a second.
Is it? Oh. Huh.
And he always says that, and I go back and look at these, and it actually isn't. So I don't know what to say to that.
But I started having and then I mean we started going into we're going to go into Afghanistan or
God help us.
But before that, even before we figured out like Al Qaeda did it, I started having a bad feeling about this, like the sort of like feeling in my gut that this is not going to turn out very well.
Well, it didn't.
Well, the first speech that George W. like the big speech he made right after 9/11.
Yeah.
The first like significant speech he made here is addressing the nation. And rather than issuing a national call to arms, saying, "Hey, we need volunteers for the military. We're going to build up and roll out. We're at war.
Yeah.
We need Americans to sacrifice here to
Is that about when he started all that national security talk?
It was getting there, but what he said was his actual message in that speech was just start shopping again and just return to living your life.
Yeah.
And he did not call on anyone to sacrifice, to join the military, to fight. The only thing that George W. Bush said at the time was just go back to living your lives, America, and meanwhile we're going to jam the Patriot Act through Congress. There was no discussion at the time of, hey, we're going to go make this a national war effort and we're going to actually fix the problem. It was just go back to living your life, America, and meanwhile we're going to build the security state.
And spy on you.
Yeah.
And that honestly can be discussed here reasonably because unfortunately this was one of the direct side effects of the panic that this fucking event caused.
Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah.
The Patriot Act
Politics
showed up in
fucking
Congress
101.
And got passed through by some extremely high margin of vote. By some extremely high voting margin, and none of the people have read it.
Yeah.
And one of those people that voted for it was Joe Biden.
Yep. Not surprisingly, honestly. In the case of either him, it's not surprising in the case of W putting it through or Biden signing off on it, honestly.
Yeah.
That, and I would say that when they started calling it, I would call it mission creep. So it suddenly went from, we're going to go and pay them back to...
And you know what, Revan?
We need to take over Iraq.
You know what, Revan? You're actually kind of right. He says the conspiracy people latched onto him looking at his watch in that nursery. Yeah, that's pretty much true. A lot of the conspiracy people jumped on George W. Bush and the security state thing.
Yeah.
The least helpful people are the conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, and also the thing that I did not like about
Go that way.
Another thing that I did not have a warm and fuzzy about was actually George W. Bush's personal leadership at the time. Because he didn't speak, it didn't appear for a while.
No.
That day he didn't address the nation until I think later on that night. Because he, instead of staying in Washington, he got into Air Force One and. Not to put too fine a point on it, he fled the capital.
Yeah, well, does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Like,
and not only that, but he had this bad habit. I'm not saying I like the guy either, but he had this really bad habit of putting like Cheney right in the line of fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the entire media hated Cheney and thought he looked evil. So, you know, if you're gonna be a shady asshole,
So
put the guy who looks evil away.
W being way smarter than a lot of people like to give him fucking credit for, just continued to play dumb and let everybody lay everything on Cheney's shoulders most of the time.
Yeah. Now, granted, this is a dude who had Dick Cheney as his vice president, which is just like, how do you do this? Like, how do you get the Bush administration where you have, it's just like the cabal of neoconservatives. God,
It's called Al Gore.
Well,
I don't. Yeah, I guess you have Al Gore. I mean, that he would not have done better. Trust me on that one.
Oh no, I know he wouldn't.
No, I don't think electing Man Bear Pig would have been better.
It's just that I remember that election cycle between these two, and if you could have two more boring people who were so freaking embedded in politics, I don't think you could get that until you had Hillary Clinton versus Trump.
Oof.
Actually, yeah, the equivalent to that election cycle would have been like Hillary Clinton versus Jeb Bush or something.
Cool.
It's like every time Al Gore showed up on TV, he turned people to. He was the new fishing channel.
Oh God!
Yeah,
the new fishing
channel. The election of 2000 was a boring election, right? It was a stupid election fought over stupid issues by nobody candidates.
Yeah, well, and also nobody really cared that much at that point.
Yeah, I think voter turnout was like 40% or something. Nobody gave a damn.
It was fucking shit.
More people remember it because of the "I don't understand how voting chads work," and it's like it's a line, idiot.
Yeah, the whole Florida disaster.
God.
And then Al Gore spending years talking about how it was stolen from him. Like, you're Al Gore. Your wife's named Tipper. You couldn't even make that interesting. Come on.
Yeah, also, this is sort of the genesis of the Republicans not doing any serious electoral fights, because I think New Mexico went to Gore about 300 votes, and the Republicans didn't even challenge it.
Woof.
I would actually say it was longer than that. About 19. It was the election where they basically threw Barry Goldwater out of the Republican Party.
Well, I mean, I know that.
Bearing in mind, you guys are descending into politics.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, well, we're just going to talk about like very circa September 2001 here.
Yeah, let's not get too far ahead of that.
Yeah. But like,
do you like hammer pants?
Good God, man.
That was like early 90s, man.
Yeah.
I know.
He's just being a dick.
Yeah, this is honestly how like Giuliani became a prominent politician outside of New York State. For the first couple of days, it was Rudy Giuliani who was the face of the national response. It wasn't George W. Bush. Disappeared.
Yeah, well, Bush was nowhere to be seen. He didn't say shit. Meanwhile, you had this bizarre show of like solidarity among New Yorkers trying to clean this shit up and find the people that were lost.
Yeah, and it was I mean, they after those towers went down, they had people just diving into that rubble pile looking for guys, and they pulled, I want to say 14 people out of the wreckage alive.
Yeah,
who had the Twin Towers collapse on them.
Well, you're having people working until they physically collapsed.
Yeah.
And had to be dragged out.
Yeah, like you had just people from all over just showed up to help out.
And it was frankly amazing, you know?
Yeah.
You had normal civilians out there with emergency personnel digging by hand through rubble and shit.
You think about it, it's like that touched a huge amount of people, at least even tangentially.
Mm-hmm.
In just people that they knew, people they were related to. That was a big open wound. And it led us into a lot of stupid things because you had a generation that was politically inexperienced.
Yeah.
And you had a lot of, well, let's just say the Omni Party basically was firmly in control and very eager to take advantage of that much anger.
Sadly.
Like, I got a little bit nervous when the Patriot Party thing had been mentioned, I was like, what the heck's this? But no one ever wanted to talk about, or the Patriot Act.
Patriot Act, yeah, that's all right. I knew what you meant.
When that guy does that party showed up and started listening to my phone calls.
Oh.
But, what I mean is, basically had an omni party. The neoconservatives and the neo-Dems were basically the same.
Yeah.
They manipulated an angry generation and then screwed them over and took advantage out of it every turn. Like,
Revan, nowadays, to answer that last question, I don't honestly know. Because both parties, and the Democrats in particular, have pushed so much divisiveness. If it were to happen again, I don't know if that unity could happen again.
Yeah,
it would never happen.
Pre 9/11, in the 90s, America was a pretty happy country. It was pretty unified. It was sort of a country in search of a cause, honestly. These days, like, politics in America these days is very toxic, very divisive, and it's very tribal. Not pre 2000 it was not like that.
Not really. I mean,
if you wanted something that would get rid of a lot of the contemptuous things right now socially, you'd have to watch Facebook, Twitch, and every other social media go down into burning
Twitter
Twitter
in particular, and I'm sorry for the people hanging out there, but TikTok. Twitter and TikTok are two of the worst when it comes to spreading this political divisive bullshit.
Well, we'll put it simple. You'd have to have social media go away, so that there's not always some little somebody picking at the social.
Because unfortunately, there's always some asshole on one of these social media platforms trying to stir the fucking pot.
And honestly, I'll tell you how the other important thing was in the 90s, the media was relatively neutral.
Mostly,
right? They were still fairly sketchy, but they had not gone full activists. They went full activists during the Iraq War.
Yeah, they sure fucking did.
Like, because the whole thing about the media being fake all the time, they started being fake all the time in 2003.
I'll put it this way: when I was deployed, right, there was this one day when we were out there in Iraq, and it was either our XO or our first sergeant came out, and he's like, okay, he's like, look. He's like, this wasn't my idea, I was against it, but there's going to be some press around camp today. And he's like, whenever they ask you something, he's like, don't even talk to him. He's like, the one safe response you have is no comment. Because at that point, we'd already started seeing them, like, literally trying to cause problems. Taking things that soldiers said or did and trying to turn it into something political, regardless of the context. So our command structure was like, either don't talk to them or tell them no comment. Don't give them any reasons.
Yeah, the media, both nationally and internationally, decided it was their mission in life to turn Iraq into the next Vietnam. And they thought they needed to make that happen. And they tried like hell to do that over years. It's fake as hell. It was stupid. You could just see them lying, but you know that's the genesis of the modern propaganda media.
Pretty much.
The same media that lost us, the air quote lost us, the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And preyed upon everything that went slightly wrong, even if we won ultimately. Yeah. Is the same group of jackasses who've been pulling this shit. The only difference was it wasn't always in your face. They had a lot more control of the messaging, so people weren't as likely to go off range. And they didn't have competition. Like them or hate them, Fox News didn't exist until really 90s.
And we sure as hell didn't have all this, independent internet reporting directly contradicting stupid shit people said.
And don't even take that as a compliment to Fox News.
No, because it's not.
They were just as bad as all the others in a lot of cases. It's just, it was the first time where you had something that was really opposing the establishment of the news. So we had a lot of these things come together and start forming the basis of a lot of the current problems we're facing right now.
Yeah, it it was really sort of a storm in a bottle almost.
Yeah.
Also, you want to talk about the deep state, the quote-unquote deep state, the sort of intelligence, law enforcement, military security nexus that was created by the Patriot Act.
Oh yeah.
Like it kind of existed beforehand, but it was much less informal. The Patriot Act formalized the whole massive expansion of the security state. Not the military, because the military actually after 9/11 did not get that much bigger.
No.
You look at like the active duty Army force size.
But that's when government jumped out of control.
Yeah. I mean, actually, something's interesting here is you look at like the force size of the active duty Army during the War on Terror.
Yeah.
It fluctuated between the Army expanded by about 25% between its low in 2000 and its height in like 2008ish. Right, it expanded up to from 430,000 to 580,000 active duty.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And
thank you, buddy. I didn't remember the exact numbers. I don't know how the fuck you did.
That's being a little bit of a policy nerd.
Gotcha.
But the actual military did not get that much bigger. The military budget did not really get that much bigger.
Oh fuck no, it did. Because I remember still being short on shit when we were in fucking Iraq.
Yeah, and actually the big, like, people say, oh, well, military spending.
Fuck
all
you.
The extra military spending that was happening was directly related to fighting the war. It wasn't related to actually, base budget, hey, we're gonna get the military into better shape stuff. It's like,
Nope.
just paying expenses related to the war. And that in and of itself was about the military budget, the base budget didn't grow that much. The war budget was about 25% of on top of the military budget. But oh my god, you look at the expansion of the intelligence apparatus.
God.
Like, and not just the expansion of the intelligence apparatus, but the coordination of the intelligence apparatus between itself, right? Because these people, at least the story is before 9/11, they didn't like each other that much, and they would kind of fight. Well, I don't completely believe that, because after 9/11, they all just locked arms and created this Patriot Act enabled monster almost. The 17 intelligence agencies, and like how they were just completely linked in between foreign and domestic, like foreign intelligence and domestic law enforcement. Like, in 2003, okay, we take Baghdad. The FBI was sending dudes to Baghdad
because they totally had some reason to do that.
Yeah, because reasons. Like, there's just no reason for them to
Like, motherfucker, you are a domestic fucking agency. You should not be overseas for anything.
Yeah. They were saying, like, oh, well, we're looking for Al-Qaeda.
The fuck you
are.
If anything, Central should be doing that shit, not you.
Yeah, like you realize there's all these people who can freaking look for Al-Qaeda who aren't you.
Yeah.
Right? in Baghdad, who are not the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
It was so stupid because everything became so weirdly interchangeable, but they'd make excuses for everything needing to be individual.
Yeah, well, it created a bureaucratic labyrinth of people with way too much power who are accountable to nobody because everything's classified.
Yeah.
Like, everything is classified. They're accountable to nobody because, again, everything is classified, and this has been proven over and over again. Like, doing any kind of oversight into classified programs is impossible.
Yeah, apparently.
And
that they don't ever bother.
It just grows like an octopus. And it almost turns out like when you give people a ton of power and no accountability to anybody, and like you create a situation in which like most of the government has to defer to them based on the name of national security, that there's a lot of room for error there.
Yeah. Kill him. I feel like that's putting it politely.
Yeah.
Not to mention, commenting on the industrial military complex element, the lesser known parts of that speech by Eisenhower where he actually warned people more so of the scientific technological elite.
Oh boy, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean Eisenhower. Actually, the remarkable thing is Eisenhower solved this in 1960, because all this grew out of World War II.
Yep.
Right, the huge national security apparatus we constructed in World War II that stuck around after World War II in the name of national security.
Yeah.
Prospect of domination of the nation's scholars by federal employment, project allocations, and the power of money is ever present and is gravely to be regarded. Yet, in holding scientific research and discovery and respect, as we should, we must also be alert to the equal and opposite danger that public policy could itself become the captive of a scientific technological elite. Eisenhower got to see all of it happen. And I mention that because when you mentioned the industrial military complex, there's been a recent trend at trashing Eisenhower.
What a fucking big surprise.
Probably because Eisenhower... You know what, it's actually...
Because he called this shit years ago.
You notice Eisenhower didn't get us into any new wars.
Mm-hmm.
No. And I've noticed that as being a major thing.
Well, him and Coolidge still get shit from fucking neocons.
Coolidge is forgotten. Eisenhower is basically... all of his character flaws are pointed out. And they hate Trump as well. And what did they all have in common? They didn't start new wars.
My God, did we deep dive politics again?
Well, this isn't necessarily a political thing, but it has something to do with some of the things we saw as we've gotten older after 9/11. 9/11 was a tragedy. It was horrible.
Revan, they've been pissing on Reagan since his fucking election. Let's don't lie about that. That's not new.
And it depends on which term of Reagan you're talking about.
Yeah, well, the second term was a bit questionable.
His second term was what I would deem a disaster in a lot of regards. But that had a lot of combinations. Dementia starting to have early inset on him.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, he picked a fight with the Federal Reserve, and they bit back.
Yeah.
And
also, I mean, like, I think Reagan honestly gets far too much credit in the conservative these days. He was
a neocon.
Yes, he was.
He was absolutely a tool of the forming security state.
Nah.
I would say that Reagan had some really good things he did, and we should give him the credit he deserves for it. But to hold him up as anything as... Well, let's put it.
He's not a pillar of conservative fucking values.
He was never conservative. He was the governor of California.
Yeah.
Even then, California really was not a conservative state.
Nope.
But what I was saying is that he's not what I would say is a master mold for conservatism as a movement.
No.
He was a master mold for representing big business.
Yeah.
And he's the one that is responsible for the bad reputation that the Republicans picked up, because before that they were the party of the working man, common sense, and practicality.
Well, and I hate to put it this way, but I mean, you hired a Hollywood actor to be president.
And he did do good things.
His first term was great, but second term, I feel like the inevitable fucking started to happen before the dementia problems.
He leaned hard into the money.
Yes, he did.
And that's been one of the biggest problems. And one of the big fights we see today with the Republican Party is the fight over what it is to be a conservative and leadership, and why you see so much blast towards populist.
Yeah, but, it's because there's a fight basically between the Republican Party, which owes their allegiance to big business, and there's a fight between the Republican Party, which owes their allegiance to their voters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have a lot of people becoming very uncomfortable because, as we're seeing today, we're slowly seeing a lot of these bought-off politicians getting pushed out of their positions and
Or
being replaced
dying
by
off.
popular. Or even that. But, you know, the party is changing, and both of them are. And a lot of it has its roots in with what happened with 9/11 and the aftermath of it.
Yeah.
But by the time of 9/11, the Republican Party was very comfortably the money party.
Ugh.
And the Democrats played poor at this while still constantly trying to push more conflict. They were leaning hard the opposite direction into more of the what I call corner case politics. And that's what started to create the big tensions. By and large, I'd say that most Americans, even who vote for either party, don't feel represented by them. And 9/11 really did kind of cement it because they felt like they joined together to take advantage of a populace that was both shocked and angry, and then said, well, we don't need to represent these people. We're just going to represent the things that give us money. Like, I guarantee
it was a case of at the time when the people of America placed their faith in politicians who did not, in I wouldn't even say politicians, in leaders. Because this wasn't necessarily even a political leadership thing. This also had to do with like the military leadership.
It was both.
In leaders who were unworthy of that trust.
I would definitely agree with that. Like, you could look at the Bidens, the Pelosi's, just any of them. And if you look at what they invested in at that time, they were all weapons companies.
Yeah, Miss Anti-Gun Pelosi.
So, I mean, you look at the, and actually to go back to my point about the military leadership, I mean, you look at how the group of generals who went into Iraq, who went into Afghanistan, and not one of them was a remarkable person.
Nah.
Not one of them was anybody I would call not one of them like really rose to prominence afterwards, except with the singular exceptions of Petraeus and Odierno, and mostly Odierno. Like most of the cadre of, and in fact, like there are some sort of like prominent, I guess H.R. McMaster, but there were any number of prominent soldiers in the army at the time, who
And Revan, I kind of agree, but on another hand, it does have something to do with it.
Yeah, it's all tangential because 9/11 was like a turning point in the culture.
Unfortunately.
And there were any number of prominent soldiers in the army at the time. People who were on the fast track to be the next generation of like generals, the sort of prominent colonels. And actually, the guy who comes to mind is Colonel Steele, who was a colonel at the time during Iraq. He was a captain in Mogadishu. He's actually portrayed in Black Hawk Down.
Oh
like,
yeah.
He got freaking. He did not come out of the Iraq War in a looking good, right? He didn't continue moving on.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Similarly, like many other generals who were involved there, Iraq and Afghanistan, these people did not prove to be very competent. And it was and yet at the same time, these are the people we're counting on as Americans to literally win a war. And a lot of these guys didn't know what they were doing.
Well, I think we could sum it up as was the rise of the political officer into a seat of prominence.
Now that feels for damn sure.
Yeah.
So
a lot of these guys were playing the. Well, actually, I'll tell you what was happening because a lot of these guys, again, the positions they got into. Bill Clinton was president for 8 years, and there was how there was a lot of politics going on with the military senior leadership under Obama. Same thing under Clinton. Exact same thing.
Yeah.
And we had the crop of.
Hey, Mary, good to see you. Thanks for showing up.
We had this crop of Clinton generals. I mean, they weren't like that heavily politicized, but many of these people had gotten into the positions they were in because they played the game during the Clinton administration.
When
Yeah.
Clinton asked them to jump, they said yes.
Yeah.
And that's how they got their positions.
And we as Americans, and we as, junior soldiers,
We appreciate it,
end
man.
up paying the price.
Oh, thank you for that, Mary. That's very kind of you.
Yeah, thank you, Mary.
Well, we watched a lot of
I'm so
strange
fucking
and
lost
dumb
out here.
things, like we watched the economy react to it. We
Oh,
watched
boy, did it
people
ever.
politicize everything, and then we watched our leadership just fall on their face over and over and over. What a lot of people don't remember, and this is not to go into a political stance here, is that the Tea Party did not rise in opposition originally against Obama. It was Bush.
Yeah, that's
Well,
true.
Well, good old George W. Bush never saw a liberal policy he didn't like.
Well, he never saw a Freddie Mac, or he didn't want to increase in size.
Yeah.
Because one thing I remember from that period is a lot of the where I lived, they had more family kind of banks. I guess
You're talking about the
small.
fucking bank bailouts.
Yeah, they got crushed because they were
Shit.
left with loans they were forced to give out.
Yeah.
The government did nothing to back them up, and then they gave money to these giant banks who got us in this problem in the first place with that crash, and then allowed them to buy up even more of the market. Because I remember where I lived at the time, we didn't see like Citibank, Bank of America, JP Morgan, or any of these. They were just little bitty banks and little bitty credit unions. And Bush enabled those to basically be taken over in hostile conditions and expand the giant banks who should have been downsized to begin with.
Yeah.
There's the damn key.
So,
And actually, you want to talk about bad... Actually, just to tie this directly into 9/11.
Yeah.
You want to talk about bad Bush administration policy? Not just bad, but stupid Bush administration policy.
Have at it.
Was, okay, so we're going after terrorists in Afghanistan, right? And we have to, get intelligence out of these guys. So rather than, I don't know, interrogating them normally like we would any other person we roll up,
Mm-hmm.
and, trying them in the Southern District in the federal court in the Southern District of New York, like any other terrorist would roll up. This dude, this freaking genius, decides to, first of all, try to abrogate the Geneva Conventions. So he's like, we're just gonna start, and then he sets up Gitmo. Okay, not only was this not super productive as far as bringing actual bad guys to justice, but let me explain to you just how stupid the thought process was that led to Gitmo. This was
You
Bush
want to
administration.
hold on? Do you want to explain that abbreviation for those who might not know what the fuck that is?
the Guantanamo Bay prison facility.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
We know they don't.
So George W. Bush, the Bush administration, decided right after 9/11. So first of all, we have to go for not to put too fine a point of it. We have to freaking torture these people to get them to reveal what they know to us. Which anyone who knows anything about effective interrogations knows you don't have to do that. This is Dick Cheney being a psycho, and George W. Bush just giving the thumbs up the whole time, right? And the second of all, that they decided, well, okay, so in order to facilitate this, we have to construct a extraterritorial prison to hold detainees from the War on Terror. And the thought process on this, I kid you not, was that they thought that, as long as they kept these prisoners away from the continental United States, there was nothing any American court could do to constrain the administration's actions. Right? This was okay. The thinking there, the legal thinking, as a little bit of an attorney, I can explain to you the legal thinking here. Was that okay? Well, as long as we hold these people in Guantanamo Bay, they don't have standing, and like American courts won't have jurisdiction over them. Okay, the legal precedent they were relying upon was so that there was a legal precedent here. You want to know what this legal precedent was? It was
I can't wait.
the Supreme Court in 1945, or I think it was like 1946, basically allowing Douglas MacArthur to run his own war crimes trials in like Manila, right? It was like the second it was like the Yamashita Supreme Court decision, where like the Supreme Court has ratified Douglas MacArthur in the immediate aftermath of World War II, like running really sketchy war crimes trials in East Asia.
Seems fucking
and
legit.
The Supreme Court was like, oh yeah, we'll just let him do that. And even then, there were dissenting votes. It was a 7-2 decision to not review Tomiyuki, to not review Yamashita's death sentence. And and this was the 1945 Supreme Court, right? Yeah. And then the Bush administration thought this was still good law in 2001.
Oh god.
You realize there have been some small developments in the law between like then and now, and also like every thinking person in the legal profession like thought this was a horrible precedent to begin with. Like, and of course I'll tell you exactly what happened was freaking terrorists get thrown in Gitmo, and then they get activist lawyers here in the United States who march into the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is like, what the hell are you doing?
God, yes. I remember all that uproar, that unnecessary uproar, because if you done it in the first fucking place,
and this leads directly up into the Obama years, where they're like, if you roll a guy up, you could question him for 24 hours and turn him free and return to him everything he had. Be they IEDs, explosives, weapons, whatever, because of the supreme screw up of the Bush administration, that it allowed the stupidity.
Hey, Mountains, good to see you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Now, like, a lot of that is extreme, is like the intersection of stupid politics relating to like stupid politics at home relating to stupid decisions being made by the military on the ground with like detainee policy in coordination with the stupid local government.
Unfortunately, in short order, 9/11 was kind of the opening act to a lot of big fucking continuing ongoing fucking problems that we have at the military officer and the governmental fucking level. Because it opened the door in this panic and this outrage to a lot of really terrible fucking decisions. So the tragedy of it is compounded by not only the lives lost, but all the horrible shit that came about because of it.
Yeah. And you know what the ridiculous thing here is just the sheer amount of time it took and continues to take to resolve this shit. Like the first example I'd give is they are still, to this day, trying to, because the government here in this country has steadfastly refused to try Al-Qaeda operatives who were captured in Afghanistan in 2001, who remain at Gitmo to this day. They steadfastly refused to actually put their big boy pants on and try them in federal court.
No, which is stupid, because they should be under terrorism charges.
Yeah, like, they have instead tried to construct this weird military tribunal system.
And in fact, throughout the Obama fucking era, we had them outright refusing to even call them terrorists.
Yeah. They've instead tried to construct this weird military tribunal system to try them at Guantanamo Bay and you want to know the reason why is because these guys all got tortured by CIA operatives, and they don't want these CIA operatives to get freaking subpoenas as witnesses. So, because that would, I don't know, the CIA had would get their feelings hurt if one of these guys got on the stand or something. I don't get
It's just fucking
between
stupid,
their,
man.
habit of blowing up journalists.
Yeah.
But like, so, look, if we had just done what we always do, instead of trying to act like the rules don't apply, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed would have been convicted, found guilty in 2002 in the Southern District of New York, and then freaking probably executed shortly thereafter.
Well, I think one of the big problems with why they avoided doing that is it gave them an open justification to continue the war.
Unfortunately, yeah. You know what, Revan? That is one of the things that during the Obama era they kept trying to refer to them as foreign combatants instead of fucking terrorists, which was total horseshit.
There's a particular reason they did that is because it restricted the military from shooting them on sight.
Yep.
And
Obama was way too concerned with being touchy-feely with the fucking Muslim extremists for some reason.
Well, if you know anything about the American Army, the major disconnect between the American people when this happened on 9/11 until today is that the broad amount of Americans believe the military is a fist that you use to punch things until that thing doesn't resemble a face anymore.
Yeah, the misconception is not great.
Views it as a manner in which they can tinker with other countries to try to get access to resources and to continue bloating up budgets and keeping investments turning out cash. So that's why we get mission creep from we're going to go punch this guy to we're going to go punch this guy and then we're going to rebuild his house and then put a road in and then build a school. And so all these things the Army, just use them as an example, are horrible at doing.
And forced to do.
Yeah, there was this, for some reason, we go into Afghanistan looking for very specific things and very specific people, and when those people immediately run over the border into Pakistan, did we do the appropriate thing and tell the Pakistanis to hand them over, we're going to invade and deal with it ourselves?
Fuck no.
No. Of course not, because for some reason, I don't know if like the ISI has dirt on every politician in Washington or something, but like, no, we just let, the Taliban set up their headquarters in Quetta, and we let Osama bin Laden move into a house in Abbottabad, and we hung around doing fuck all in Afghanistan for a long time. When that country owed us nothing, we owed that country nothing. We were there to deal with a terrorist group.
Well, let's
which we should have done and
during
fucked off.
The Obama years. Who got the contracts to deal with a lot of the oil well stuff under Obama? Anybody know?
I mean, a lot of that was Halliburton.
And you know who was working on their board?
Mr. Cheney.
Mr. Joe Biden's brother.
That too.
You forgot that, yeah.
He was that company was basically picked to deal with a lot that his brother worked for, under and directly because of Joe Biden having involvement with Iraq during the Obama years. So, let's be perfectly honest. The American people wanted someone to get punched in the face, and then they wanted to go home. And the political situation, let's just call it that, saw fit to try to milk this to benefit themselves.
Yeah,
and that's the immediate problem.
The money spigot turned on, and they, rather than taking a reasonable approach to this, which is we're going to find the people who did this and we're going to kill all of them, and the ones who we haven't killed we're going to haul up in front of a federal court and then we're going to kill them later by execution.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh no, we're going to get into some weird, poorly defined mission to reconstruct Afghanistan because these terrorists were at one point hiding out there. And then we're going to go invade Iraq because
fuck.
Because he tried to assassinate my daddy.
Yeah, something to that effect.
And I was just like, really? But
like look, I was in high school at the time, right? I was a junior in high school when Iraq was going down. I could tell this was sketchy as hell.
Well, anybody with a brain, could see something was up, because we're gonna go punch those guys and make them pay, and then it just kept turning into something else and something else and something else.
Yeah.
And the mission kept getting bigger and bigger, and then all of these politicians started buying bigger homes.
Yeah. Well, you also notice, so that they had a commission on 9/11, right?
God.
So the 9/11 commission, which met and made a series of pretty reasonable recommendations, and you want to know what and most of those recommendations were not acted upon.
Of course not.
Because one of those big recommendations, in fact, one of their bottom lines was Islamic terrorism is a systemic problem relating to the emergence in current popularity of extremist thought within Islam.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like going to be endemic so long as freaking extremist madrasas keep on pumping out crazy people.
Well, let's even go a little bit further than that. We're talking, oh God, the marching song for the Marines from the halls of
Tripoli. Yeah.
We have had this problem with this particular air quote faith since before we were a major power in the world.
Yeah.
What people don't understand, and I would actually encourage people, buy a copy of the Quran, read it. The first thing you're going to realize if you have an active brain is that it's a governmental system.
Yeah, pretty much. It's also just there to encourage you to murder and destroy anyone who opposes it.
It's a governmental system first. It's a religion second.
Mm-hmm.
And it even spells this out into it. And then also you have to remember that the newer stuff eclipses the older tenets.
Deliberately, in fact,
and the
very
important thing to
deliberately.
remember about the Quran is that the Quran is not organized in a chronological order. It isn't a story from beginning to end. It's organized by chapter length.
Yeah.
So if you want to actually... So if you just read through the Quran back to front, you don't get a really good idea of what the current doctrine is. Because Muhammad says a lot of stuff in the Quran. And the newer stuff makes the older stuff obsolete.
And you also will notice with, like, just using Muhammad, you can see early things where he's talking about peace are all eclipsed by the things where he's like, yeah, kill everybody.
Yeah, and you have to have, like, the Islamic... I mean, you have to have, like, some I guess, more deeper Islamic education to get up on, like, what the current doctrine is and what the end state of the Quran is. And that's not immediately obvious from looking.
And it's an interesting thing to point out that the commission did basically say, look, there's an actual fundamental issue here, because you can look back to the writings of Benjamin Franklin when he was president saying there's a fundamental problem here. It's not changed or gone away, and it's something that we have refused to confront and we can't fix because we refuse to deal with it. It's easier to bomb people and build roads than actually figuring out something to do with this problem.
Yeah. Well, honestly, this is a problem in Western thought that predates the United States of America, because Christians in general are very big on religious toleration.
Well, I'd also say it's a view because a lot of people let's just take Christians, for example. They view the Bible as sacred and you don't change it. So they immediately transpose that way of thinking onto the Quran. And when you look at the Quran is nothing but people changing it.
Before we go into the weeds any further on this, the Quran is modular to whoever the hell is taking advantage of it at the time. Let's just leave it at that.
Whoever's popular or in power.
Yeah.
Like, one of the funny suggestions, the last little bit I'll put on it, because I'm not really condemning or anything, I'm just talking I'm trying to explain so people understand.
All right.
Is I'm not sure if his title was an imam, but he's one of the big guys in Australia.
Okay.
And he's been saying that the Western governments need to write a version of the Quran that fits in Western culture and enforce it.
Yeah, it would help.
That is only acceptable in the West. Because he's like, look, people rewrite this thing all the time. Clerics will decide that this doesn't count, that does. Hey, add this in. He's like, the only way you're gonna make it even potentially work with things, because it's a governmental body, is you have to rewrite it.
All right, guys, we're over the hour mark we agreed upon, so
Yeah.
let's go ahead and wrap this up, huh?
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, so I'm sure anybody listening to the stream here would realize that 9/11 isn't just an event, right? It's a totem.
Almost, yeah.
It is the clay which has shaped American society to this modern point.
Yeah, it's a turning point in American history, and it's a turning point in American society. And I mean, you can really see all of the current problems that America faces: the lack of competence of government, the social division, the problems with military adventurism. All of that, the inability to have honest conversations about the problems that face us. And all of that, you just see, and I mean, I'm sure you've listened to the discussion. All of that you can see just reflected in 9/11. So why I call it it's a totem. It's a microcosm of what America is, what's great about America, and what is wrong with America, and how the greatness of the American spirit can be misused often very badly by the political elite.
It's our 40 years in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And hopefully we come out the other side with better concepts of what we originally were and what we can do better.
One hopes.
9/11 is both a tragedy and a point of potential something good to come out of it, because it's laid bare so many of the problems that we've had that were just sitting below the surface before. While reminding us of what came before us and helping us to get a better idea of who we are and who we want to be.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And I hope for all the guys that I've known that have suffered through this in all the different countries that they can find some solace in this, and we can stop this from being something that causes another 20 years of pain and suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
it's
like
go ahead.
It didn't have to be this way, and the thing is that the power to make it stop continuing to be this way, I mean, that lies in all of us.
Yep. We can teach future generations and act as examples for something better. But thank you all for showing up. Mike, you want to say anything?
As you can tell throughout this, okay. I'm kind of exhausted by this whole thing. I've been exhausted by all the shit that's going on recently. I've always been proud of the shit I did in the military, and particularly when I was in 1st Cav, but all this shit was put so much weight on me mentally. I don't know anymore.
All right, well, how about this? I hope everyone that's watching and might watch in the future might lift a glass and toast both those who have been lost in such tragedy, who suffered through such tragedy, seeing that life has brought us and can reach for something better in the future. How about that?
I think you nailed it.
Yeah. To the heroes.
To the heroes. Clang.
All
living and dead.
And that's where we're going to call it for today. Thanks, everybody, for showing up and putting up with all this and chiming in. I hope you all have a nice rest of the weekend. And
thank you,
that's
everyone.
Nice, Reverend. Thank you. Later, guys.